On the rainy afternoon of November 24th, 1971, a man using the alias Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon, bound for Seattle, Washington. What began as an ordinary 30-minute domestic flight would soon spiral into one of the most perplexing aviation mysteries in history. With his calm demeanor, well-dressed appearance, and polite attitude, nothing about the man suggested what he was about to do. But within hours, Dan Cooper would become D.B. Cooper, a name that would ignite decades of investigation, conspiracy theories, and cultural fascination. Cooper was described as being in his mid-40s, wearing a black suit, white shirt, black shirt. He quietly handed a note to a flight attendant, Florence Schaffner, shortly after takeoff. Initially believing it to be just another man trying to flirt, she pocketed the note. Cooper leaned in and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Inside the note was a chilling demand, $200,000 in cash, equivalent to over $1.4 million today, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle for a getaway. In his briefcase, Cooper revealed wires and red sticks, what appeared to be dynamite, confirming the threat was serious. Yet remarkably, despite the gravity of the situation, Cooper remained composed, courteous, and calm throughout the ordeal. He even ordered a bourbon and smoked cigarettes as the pilots negotiated with authorities. Once the flight landed in Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, the passengers, minus 36 in total, were exchanged for the ransom money and parachutes. True to his word, Cooper released the passengers unharmed, retaining only the crew. He then instructed the pilot to take off again and head toward Mexico City, flying at a low altitude of 10,000 feet and at a slow speed of 200 knots. These unusual flight parameters were chosen to allow for a parachute escape. Roughly 30 minutes after takeoff, somewhere over the dense forests of southwestern Washington, Cooper opened the rear staircase of the Boeing 727 and parachuted into the night, disappearing without a trace. It was cold, raining, and pitch black outside. No one saw him jump, no parachute was recovered, and no body was ever found. By the time the plane landed safely with the remaining crew in Reno, Nevada, Cooper was gone, vanishing into folklore and mystery. The FBI immediately launched Operation Norjack, Northwest Hijack, what would become one of the longest and most exhaustive investigations in the Bureau's history. Hundreds of suspects were questioned. The area of his possible landing, rugged, forested, and remote terrain, was searched thoroughly. But Cooper had vanished, as if swallowed by the earth. Over the years, the FBI compiled an extensive list of suspects, but no individual was definitively identified as D.B. Cooper. Some had criminal backgrounds, others had military experience or parachuting knowledge, but none matched every clue perfectly. Adding to the confusion was a journalistic error. The hijacker had identified himself as Dan Cooper, but a reporter mistakenly referred to him as D.B. Cooper, and the name stuck. The FBI's list grew to over 800 suspects, but despite handwriting analysis, polygraph tests, and composite sketches, the case remained cold. Several prominent leads and theories emerged, but all were eventually ruled inconclusive. The only physical evidence ever found was a few items left on the plane: a black clip-on tie, a mother-of-pearl tie pin, and 8 cigarette butts, which were lost before DNA could be extracted. Then, in 1980, a breakthrough occurred when a boy named Brian Ingram discovered $5,800.00 in decaying $20.00 bills along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. Bills confirmed to be part of Cooper's ransom money. However, this only deepened the mystery. If Cooper had landed near that area, why was only part of the money found? And why hadn't more turned up? Further complicating the case, analysis showed that the money had likely been buried there months after the hijacking, and not immediately. Did Cooper survive and stash it, or did it wash downstream from elsewhere? No one could say for sure. The FBI also tested particles found on Cooper's tie. Using advanced forensics years later, they found rare earth elements like titanium, suggesting that Cooper may have worked in aerospace or high-tech manufacturing. This clue narrowed the suspect pool, but again, didn't conclusively point to one person. Further complicating the case, analysis showed that the money had likely been buried there months after the hijacking, and not immediately. Did Cooper survive and stash it, or did it wash downstream from elsewhere? No one could say for sure. The FBI also tested particles found on Cooper's tie. Using advanced forensics years later, they found rare earth elements like titanium, suggesting that Cooper may have worked in aerospace or high-tech manufacturing. This clue narrowed the suspect pool, but again, didn't conclusively point to one person. Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., a former Green Beret who staged a nearly identical. Numerous suspects over the decades have stood out. Some of the most prominent include hijacking just months later. He parachuted out of a plane with $500,000, 0 cents in ransom, but was later caught. While many similarities existed, the FBI ultimately ruled him out because he didn't match witness descriptions and had an alibi for the day of Cooper's hijacking. Kenneth Christensen, a former paratrooper and Northwest Airlines employee. Some investigators believe he fit the profile, had access, and bore a resemblance to Cooper's sketch. However, the evidence remains circumstantial. Robert Rackstraw, a Vietnam veteran with parachuting experience and a criminal background. Some amateur investigators, including a former FBI agent, believed he was the hijacker. However, the FBI officially ruled him out in 1979. Dwayne Weber. On his deathbed in 1995, Weber reportedly confessed to his wife that he was D.B. Cooper. She later found old Northwest Orient flight tickets and a notebook with cryptic codes. Although intriguing, DNA evidence didn't support the claim. Despite the range of suspects, none have been definitively proven to be D.B. Cooper. In 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closed the case, citing the need to focus on more pressing priorities. Nevertheless, amateur sleuths, internet forums, and documentarians have kept the mystery alive. D.B. Cooper has become a fixture in American pop culture, a symbol of rebellion, mystery, and intrigue. He has been portrayed in numerous books, documentaries, TV shows, and movies. He's seen as a folk hero by someone who outwitted the system without harming anyone. That mystique, combined with his politeness during the hijacking, gives him an almost Robin Hood-like image in the public imagination. Each year, Cooper enthusiasts gather in Washington and Oregon to celebrate CooperCon, a convention dedicated to examining new theories, evidence, and celebrating the legend. Despite the serious crime committed, D.B. Cooper occupies a strange space in American history, a criminal. Yes, but also a legend. The question at the heart of the mystery remains, did D.B. Cooper survive? Some experts believe it's highly unlikely. The weather that night was freezing, the terrain rugged and remote, and Cooper wore only a suit and loafers, not exactly survival gear. Moreover, jumping from a Boeing 727 at night in those conditions would be dangerous even for an expert skydiver. Others argue he knew exactly what he was doing. He chose a plane with a rear stairway which could be lowered in flight, requested specific flight conditions, and even selected parachutes from among those provided. If he died during the jump, where's the body? If he survived, where did he go? Why has none of the money been spent or surfaced beyond the $5,800 found in 1980? Was Cooper a seasoned criminal or a desperate man pulling off one extraordinary act? These questions have kept armchair detectives busy for more than half a century. Cooper hijacking had a profound impact on airline security. Within a year, the FAA mandated that all Boeing 727 aircraft be fitted with a device called the Cooper vane, a mechanical modification that prevents the rear staircase from being lowered mid-flight. Airports also introduced metal detectors, baggage screenings, and stricter boarding protocols, marking the beginning of the modern era of airport security. In this way, While Cooper may not have been caught, his actions changed the course of commercial aviation permanently. Over 50 years later, the mystery of D.B. Cooper remains unsolved. No suspect has ever been charged, no clear determined, and no definitive evidence uncovered. Yet the story endures because it taps into something uniquely human. The thrill of the unknown, the allure of the outlaw, and the irresistible question of what if. Whether D.B. Cooper died in the forest that stormy night or lived out his life in quiet anonymity, his legacy is assured. He's a man who vanished into thin air with a bag full of money and a smirk hidden behind a pair of sunglasses, leaving behind only questions, theories, and the thrill of a mystery that refuses to die. In an age of surveillance, data, and digital footprints, Cooper's case stands as a monument to the limits of modern investigation. Perhaps that's what makes it so captivating. In a world where we think we can know everything, Cooper reminds us that sometimes mystery wins.